Imagine walking along a muddy shoreline at low tide. The water has receded, leaving behind glistening pools, wriggling crabs, and something far stranger. A fish, yes, a fish, emerges from the muck. It props itself up on strong fins, blinks its bulging eyes above the surface, and begins to walk. Not only does it walk, but it also climbs tangled roots and even low-hanging branches. Meet the mudskipper, the fish that refuses to stay in water. Mudskippers are among nature's boldest rule breakers. While most fish suffocate in air, mudskippers have evolved a bizarre system to breathe on land. They gulp air into enlarged gill chambers, keeping oxygen trapped like scuba tanks. Their moist skin and lining of the mouth and throat also act like lungs, absorbing oxygen directly from the atmosphere, so long as they stay wet. It's a life balanced on the edge between two worlds. But breathing is only half the story. Mudskippers turn tidal flats into battle arenas. Males defend muddy burrows with dramatic displays, arching their bodies, raising their fins like flags, and leaping high into the air to intimidate rivals. When danger lurks, they can dart back into the water or vanish into tunnels dug deep in the mud. Their amphibious instincts are not just strange. They are essential for survival in some of the harshest coastal environments on Earth. In today's video, we'll uncover the secrets of the mudskipper, the fish that climbs trees, fights on mud, and lives where sea and land collide. How does it survive outside water? Why has evolution granted a fish such amphibious power? And what can this bizarre creature teach us about life's ability to break the rules? Stay tuned, because this is no ordinary fish story. The story of the mudskipper begins in the most unlikely place, where the ocean ends and the land begins. Tidal flats, mangrove swamps, and muddy estuaries are shifting battlefields of survival, ruled not by one element, but by two. Here, the ground is never stable. Twice a day, tides sweep in, drowning everything in salt water. Twice a day, the sea retreats, leaving only slick mud, sticky pools, and scorching sunlight. Few animals thrive in this chaotic zone. Yet the mudskipper has turned this instability into opportunity. Where other fish are stranded, it thrives. Where crabs struggle, it competes. Where most creatures retreat, it pushes forward, claiming both land and water as its territory. Walking across the mud on its muscular fins, the mudskipper looks awkward but determined. Its bulging eyes swivel independently, scanning the sky for predators and the ground for rivals. It is not trapped by the tide. It rules the rhythm. This amphibious lifestyle gives the mudskipper an edge. By leaving the water, it avoids aquatic predators like larger fish. By climbing onto land, it claims access to food sources hidden in the mud: small insects, worms, and tiny crustaceans. What appears at first as clumsy survival is, in truth, a masterclass in adaptation. The mudskipper doesn't just tolerate the edge of land and sea, it has evolved to dominate it. For most fish, life without water is an instant death sentence. Their gills are designed to strip oxygen from liquid, not air. Once exposed to open air, their delicate tissues collapse and suffocation follows in minutes. The mudskipper, however, rewrites this rule entirely. Instead of drowning in air, it carries a pocket of water with it. Inside its enlarged gill chambers, the mudskipper traps moist air bubbles and seals them in. These chambers function like tiny scuba tanks, holding oxygen that the fish can draw from while roaming outside the tide. It is a portable life support system built entirely by evolution. But the innovation doesn't end there. Mudskippers also breathe through their skin and the lining of their mouths and throats. Much like amphibians, their skin must stay wet to allow oxygen to pass through into the bloodstream. Every moment on land is a balancing act between freedom and dehydration. Too dry, and the mudskipper suffocates. Too wet, and predators return. To solve this, mudskippers constantly roll in damp mud and retreat to moist burrows. By coating their skin with a thin layer of mud and mucus, They maintain the delicate moisture needed for survival. What looks like clumsy wriggling is, in truth, a vital maintenance ritual, keeping lungs and skin alive under the harsh tropical sun. This dual breathing system allows mudskippers to push far beyond the water's edge. They can spend hours, sometimes an entire day, above the tide, clambering over roots, basking on exposed mudflats, and even perching on mangrove branches. Each breath is a reminder of their evolutionary gamble, living in a world where most fish cannot follow. Scientists often describe mudskippers as half fish, half amphibian, but that label misses the beauty of their adaptation. Amphibians left the sea millions of years ago through evolutionary leaps. Mudskippers, on the other hand, never fully abandoned it. They remain loyal to both worlds, borrowing tricks from land dwellers while retaining the soul of a fish. What makes this even more astonishing is their control. When oxygen is abundant, they rely on their gills. On land, they switch effortlessly to cutaneous breathing. It is a flexible hybrid system, fine-tuned by the relentless push of tidal life. While other fish are confined to one realm, the mudskipper thrives as a true amphibious rebel. This breathing strategy also reveals a deeper lesson about survival. Evolution does not always favor strength or speed. Sometimes the greatest advantage comes from bending the rules, finding loopholes in biology that turn weakness into power. The mudskipper is fragile on land, yet that fragility is the key to its freedom. By learning to breathe where others choke, the mudskipper claims a space no predator dominates. It is not the strongest fish in the water, nor the swiftest hunter on land, but it is something far more dangerous in the game of survival: unpredictable. The sight of a fish breathing air, clinging to roots, and blinking against the sun challenges everything we think we know about life's boundaries. It reminds us that the line between water and land is not absolute. It is negotiable. And in that negotiation, the mudskipper has emerged as one of nature's strangest diplomats, thriving at the frontier of two worlds. When the tide recedes, the mudflats are revealed like a stage. To the casual eye, it seems empty, just mud, pools of stagnant water, and tangled roots of mangroves. But to the mudskipper, this is a battlefield, a marketplace, and a home all in one. Every mudskipper knows its place. Males carve out small territories, often around the entrances to their burrows. These burrows, dug deep into the soft mud, serve as fortresses, nurseries, and shelters against the punishing heat. To own a burrow is to own a kingdom, and kingdoms must be defended. When rivals approach, the mudskipper transforms. What looks like a sluggish fish becomes a miniature gladiator. It raises its dorsal fins high like banners, spreading them wide in a display of dominance. Colors sharpen under the sunlight, fins ripple like war flags, and the mud becomes an arena. The battles are rarely bloody, but they are dramatic. Two males face off, arching their backs, lifting their heads, and leaping into the air. They splash mud around like storm clouds, each jump a statement. This is my land. Stay back. Sometimes these duels last only minutes. Other times they stretch into hours of feints, charges, and retreats. Victory is not always about strength. Often it is about endurance, intimidation, and sheer persistence. The mudskipper that tires first will eventually retreat, slipping back into the water or ceding ground. The victor basks proudly, fins still raised, while the loser disappears into the mud shadows. Yet aggression is balanced with caution. Predators circle above, herons, egrets, and kingfishers, with eyes sharp enough to spot movement from far away. A careless leap could turn a mudskipper from warrior to prey in seconds. That is why every battle is staged with one eye on the sky and one fin ready to dive into the safety of a burrow. Inside those burrows lies another battlefield, one fought not with fins, but with oxygen. Burrows are sealed chambers, often filled with water when tides return. To survive, mudskippers engineer air pockets inside their tunnels, creating bubbles of breathable air. These pockets are life-saving, allowing eggs to develop and adults to rest during the suffocating hours of high tide. The engineering is as strange as it is brilliant. Using their mouths, mudskippers gulp air at the surface and carry it down into their burrows, releasing it into chambers. Slowly, the tunnels fill with enough oxygen for survival. To call this fish behavior is almost misleading. It is closer to architecture. Mating rituals also unfold on the mudflat stage. Males use their burrows as lures, performing elaborate displays to entice females. They leap high into the air, twist mid-flight, and splash down with theatrical force. Each movement is designed to advertise strength, stamina, and the promise of a safe nursery. For females, the choice is critical. The wrong partner means weak protection, unstable burrows, or eggs left vulnerable to predators. The right partner offers survival for the next generation. Watching the mudskippers court is like witnessing a blend of dance and battle. Part competition, part seduction, all survival. And then, the tide returns. The battlefield vanishes under a sheet of seawater. Burrows seal shut, flags are lowered, and warriors retreat. The mudskippers slip beneath the surface, their world transformed once again. For hours, the war is paused. But as soon as the water drains away, the cycle begins anew, as predictable and as dramatic as the rise and fall of the moon. This endless duel for territory reveals something deeper about the mudskipper's nature. It is not content simply to survive. It fights, claims, and displays, turning the mudflat into a theater of life. Survival here is not passive. It is a performance, rehearsed over millions of years of evolution. The idea of a fish climbing trees sounds like a child's fantasy, or perhaps a myth told by sailors after too much rum. And yet, in the tangled roots of mangrove forests, this vision becomes real. The mudskipper does not simply crawl across the mud. It clambers upward, testing boundaries no other fish dares to cross. Mangrove roots form natural ladders, jutting from the mud like the bones of a drowned forest. Covered in algae and slime, they are slick and treacherous. For most creatures, they are obstacles. For the mudskipper, they are pathways. Using its strong pectoral fins like grappling hooks, it drags itself upward, one slippery push at a time. The climb is awkward, yet determined. The fish pauses often, anchoring its body against the root, then pushing higher. Its bulging eyes swivel independently, scanning both air and water. Every movement is a calculated risk. Each inch gained means greater visibility, greater opportunity, and greater danger. Why climb at all? For one, elevation offers safety. From higher perches, mudskippers can watch for predators lurking in the shallows below. Birds may still threaten from above, but on mangrove roots, the fish gains a rare vantage point in its muddy world. Survival often belongs to those who see danger first. But climbing serves another purpose: food. Mangrove roots are alive with small insects, algae, and other microprey. By perching on roots, mudskippers exploit a buffet most fish could never reach. It is not just survival, it is expansion, a conquest of niches untouched by guild rivals. To see a mudskipper clinging to a root or branch is to watch evolution in motion. Its fins press firmly like tiny hands, its tail wiggles to steady balance, and its mouth sometimes scrapes algae off the bark. What once was a fin for swimming has been repurposed into a tool for climbing. This behavior blurs the boundary between fish and amphibian even further. The mudskipper is not transforming into a frog, nor is it abandoning the ocean. Instead, it is writing a new chapter in amphibious life, proving that even the strangest environments can be conquered. At low tide, some mudskippers venture so far onto exposed roots that they look like misplaced reptiles, sunning themselves above water. Their skin glistens with mucus, their eyes blinking independently like sentinels. From these perches, they leap back into the mud when startled, splashing down with surprising agility. The spectacle confuses observers. Locals who live near mangroves have long told stories of walking fish, or tree fish, blurring fact and folklore. To witness a creature with scales and fins sitting confidently on a tree branch is to question the very categories we use to divide life. Scientists studying these climbs marvel at the evolutionary improvisation. While true amphibians use limbs built for gripping, mudskippers rely on brute strength and sticky friction. They grip with muscles designed for swimming, but adapted for crawling. It is not elegant, but it works, and survival does not care about elegance. These climbs also play into courtship and display. A male perched on a root, fins raised, is visible to rivals and females alike. From this elevated stage, it declares dominance, boasting of its strength and stamina. In the mudskipper's world, height is not just safety, it is status. And yet, every climb is a gamble. One slip could send the fish tumbling into the waiting beak of a bird. One careless pause could expose it to predators prowling the flats. Still, the mudskipper climbs. Again and again, each ascent a reminder that survival favors the bold. In the end, climbing trees is more than a quirky behavior. It is proof of the mudskipper's refusal to be confined. Water is not enough. Land is not enough. Even trees must be tested. Where boundaries exist, the mudskipper pushes through, leaving muddy tracks on mangrove bark as evidence of its conquest. The fish that climbs trees is more than a curiosity. It is a living challenge to biology itself. It asks us to rethink what fish can be, what life can do, and how far evolution can stretch the rules. On the mudflat battlefield, survival is not only about fighting predators or holding territory. It is also about winning mates. And for mudskippers, courtship is a spectacle as dramatic as any duel. Males are the main performers. Their burrow is their castle, and attracting a female to that castle requires more than brute strength. It requires display, bold, exaggerated, almost theatrical movements designed to grab attention. A courting male raises his dorsal fins like flags, the colors flashing under the tropical sun. He arches his body, stiffens his tail, and makes sudden leaps into the air. Each leap is a signal. Look at me. I am strong. I can defend. I am worthy. The leaps can be astonishingly high for such a small fish, sometimes several times the length of its own body. When it crashes back into the mud with a splash, the sound reverberates across the flats. Rivals hear it, females see it, and the stage is set for choice. These displays are not random. Scientists have observed precise sequences, raising fins, circling, leaping, then retreating to the burrow entrance as if inviting the female inside. The performance is both promise and challenge. It says, "Come see my fortress, but know I will defend it." Females, however, are not easily impressed. They watch with careful eyes, weighing the energy, stamina, and confidence of the male. A weak or hesitant performance is ignored. A vigorous, tireless display may convince her to inspect his burrow. Rival males often interrupt these rituals. Two performers may face off in dueling leaps, their bodies glistening with mud, fins flaring like banners of war. Sometimes the courtship stage becomes a battlefield, with females caught in the drama of dominance. Inside the burrow, if a female accepts, the pair may mate. The male then guards the burrow fiercely, ensuring the safety of the eggs. Burrows become nurseries, with oxygen pockets carefully maintained so embryos do not suffocate when tides return. This devotion to burrows is why courtship is so intense. The male's reputation rests not only on his leaps and displays, but also on the architecture he can provide. A strong burrow means survival for offspring. A weak one means certain death. To the casual eye, these dances may look like play, but they are deadly serious. A mistimed leap could alert predators. A failed defense could cost both territory and future offspring. Every movement carries the weight of survival. Females, meanwhile, often move between territories, watching multiple displays before making a choice. In this way, the mudflat becomes a stage of competition, with dozens of males performing simultaneously, each desperate to prove himself, each hoping to be chosen. The drama of courtship ensures that only the fittest males pass on their genes. The strongest leapers, the fiercest defenders, the most skilled burrow builders, these are the ones who father the next generation. In this sense, the mudskipper's dance is evolution itself, written in mud and movement. For those who witness it, the sight is unforgettable. A fish leaping like a bird, defending burrows like a mammal, and wooing with displays that rival the most flamboyant birds of paradise. It is bizarre, unexpected, and utterly mesmerizing. The dance of the mudskipper reminds us that beauty in nature is not confined to feathers or flowers. Sometimes it rises from mud in the leaps of a fish that dares to be more than what we expect. For all its boldness, the mudskipper lives under constant threat. To step onto land is to escape some enemies, but it also means facing others. Every movement across the mudflat is a gamble, with danger lurking above, below, and all around. The skies are the most unforgiving. Herons, kingfishers, and egrets patrol tidal flats with patient eyes. From high above, they wait for the slightest twitch of movement. One careless leap, one exposed climb, and a sharp beak can pierce the mudskipper before it ever dives for safety. On the ground, crabs are formidable rivals. Fiddler crabs and larger crustaceans compete for burrows, snapping with powerful claws. A mudskipper that strays too close risks being pinched, injured, or even eaten. These clashes turn the mudflat into a mosaic of skirmishes, fish against crab, mudskipper against mudskipper. The water, too, remains dangerous. At high tide, larger predatory fish glide silently over the submerged flats. Groupers, snappers, and even juvenile sharks seize any mudskipper caught in open water. For a creature that dares to rule both realms, the ocean is still a reminder of its vulnerability. Snakes slither along the edges of mangroves, ambushing prey that lingers too long. Some species have adapted to tidal zones, striking from roots or burrows. The mudskipper's best defense is vigilance, eyes that swivel constantly, bodies poised to leap at the first flicker of danger. But the greatest enemy is the sun itself. Without moisture, the mudskipper's skin dries, and with it, its ability to breathe. A hot midday tide pool becomes a deadly trap, baking the fish alive. That is why burrows are so vital. Cool refuges against the merciless heat. Competition among mudskippers adds to the peril. Territories overlap, and weaker individuals are often forced into riskier, exposed patches of mud. Here, predators have the advantage, and survival becomes a test of both courage and luck. Despite these threats, mudskippers endure through cunning. They leap unpredictably, dart into burrows, and even feign stillness, blending into the mud like living shadows. To survive, they rely not on brute power but on instincts sharpened by millions of years of tidal warfare. Predators may claim many, but enough survive to carry the cycle forward. In the end, the mudskipper's greatest weapon is not its fins, its burrow, or even its breath. It is resilience, the unyielding will to risk everything for the chance to thrive in a world of constant danger. If the mudflat is a battlefield, then the burrow is a fortress. For the mudskipper, it is more than a hole in the mud. It is a nursery, a refuge, and a life support system designed with remarkable precision. Few creatures of its size build with such ingenuity. Each burrow begins with a careful excavation. Using its mouth like a shovel and its fins like paddles, the mudskipper scoops and pushes wet mud aside. The tunnel slopes downward, sometimes twisting, until it forms a chamber hidden deep beneath the surface. From above, the entrance may seem small, but underground lies an entire miniature world. These burrows can be surprisingly long, some stretching over a meter in length, an impressive feat for a fish barely the size of a hand. The deeper the tunnel, the safer it becomes. Inside, the temperature remains cooler, the humidity higher, and predators find it nearly impossible to reach. But the mudskipper's true brilliance lies in its manipulation of air. As the tide rises, burrows fill with water. If left unprepared, this would suffocate both adults and their eggs. To solve this, mudskippers create air pockets inside the chamber. They gulp air at the surface, carry it down, and release it bubble by bubble, slowly inflating a hidden dome of oxygen. Scientists call these aerial chambers. To the mudskipper, they are survival vaults. Eggs deposited in the chamber cling to the muddy ceiling, safe from being swept away. Adults retreat inside, breathing from the trapped bubble while the ocean churns outside. It is an underwater bunker, engineered without tools, only instinct. The design also protects against extremes. When the sun bakes the mud flat, the burrow remains cool. When rain floods the surface, the chamber offers stability. Each burrow is not just a shelter, but a climate-controlled refuge carved out of shifting earth. Building and maintaining these tunnels requires constant labor. Mudskippers reinforce entrances, clear collapsed passages, and adjust air supplies. To watch them work is to see fish behaving like architects, engineers, and caretakers all at once. Burrows are also symbols of power. A male's ability to build and defend a strong burrow directly affects his chances of mating. Females inspect the structure, testing its safety before laying eggs. Weak burrows are abandoned, while strong ones become nurseries for the next generation. Rival males often attempt to invade or sabotage each other's burrows. These confrontations are fierce, with mud flying and fins flashing. To lose a burrow is to lose everything: territory, reputation, and the hope of passing on one's genes. In this way, burrows are more than physical structures. They are extensions of identity. They define status, secure survival, and shape the entire social order of the mudflat. A mudskipper without a burrow is adrift, vulnerable, and unlikely to succeed. The ingenuity of these architects highlights a deeper truth about evolution. Intelligence takes many forms. We often measure it by tools, language, or fire. But here, in the silent labor of a fish moving mud, we see another kind of brilliance, born not from thought, but from instinct perfected over eons. To call the mudskipper strange is almost an understatement. Its world is full of behaviors that blur the line between fish and amphibian, instinct and improvisation. Each action seems bizarre, yet every quirk carries purpose. One of the most curious habits is basking. At low tide, mudskippers often sprawl on exposed flats, pressing their bellies into the warm mud. They raise their eyes above their heads, swiveling them independently like tiny periscopes. To an observer, it looks lazy. In reality, it is strategic. Sunlight helps regulate their temperature, while the mud beneath keeps their skin moist enough to breathe. Rolling in the mud is another signature act. The fish wriggles, twists, and coats itself in a slimy mixture of mucus and silt. This messy ritual prevents dehydration, creates a cooling layer, and even deters parasites. What looks like play is, in truth, a daily life-saving necessity. Communication among mudskippers is also a spectacle. Instead of calls or songs, they speak through body language. Raised fins, head bobs, leaps, and even stares all carry meaning. A sudden leap may signal aggression, while a slow arching of the back can warn rivals to keep their distance. Eye contact plays a powerful role. With bulging, independently moving eyes, mudskippers lock gazes in confrontations that feel almost human. A prolonged stare is a challenge, a threat, a dare. Two mudskippers glaring across the mudflat look less like fish and more like rival duelists ready to draw swords. They also exhibit surprising social complexity. Territories are defended fiercely, but boundaries are recognized. Neighbors may spar daily, yet rarely cross into full-on destruction. These skirmishes resemble rituals more than wars, conflict managed through display rather than outright violence. When startled, mudskippers dive dramatically into their burrows. Yet sometimes they freeze, flattening themselves against the mud, relying on camouflage to vanish into the background. This act of stillness confuses predators, who pass over what appears to be nothing more than a lump of earth. Feeding behavior adds another layer of oddity. Unlike most fish, mudskippers hunt on land, snatching insects, worms, and tiny crustaceans from the surface. They lunge forward with quick strikes, jaws snapping, then retreat to swallow. Watching them hunt feels more like watching reptiles than fish. Playful interactions are sometimes observed too. Juveniles chase one another across the mud, leaping and splashing without clear aggression. Whether practice for adult battles or simply youthful energy, these games add a rare glimpse of joy to an otherwise harsh world. Perhaps the strangest habit of all is their relationship with water. Most fish panic without it. Mudskippers, however, treat water almost as an afterthought, a place to retreat when tides rise or predators close in. To them, water is safety, not home. Their true kingdom lies above the surface, in the mud that gives them their name. All these behaviors combine to form a portrait of a creature that challenges our categories. It is not simply a fish, it is not quite amphibian. It is something in between, a living contradiction that thrives in its contradictions. The mudskipper's strangeness is not random. Each odd ritual, each bizarre gesture is written by evolution for survival. To roll in mud, to leap in courtship, to stare in defiance, all are strategies honed over countless generations, polished into instinctual art. To watch them is to step into a world where logic bends, where fish breathe air, climb trees, and duel in the mud. It is a reminder that life does not obey our definitions. It creates its own, endlessly surprising. The mudskipper may look like an odd curiosity, but humans have noticed it for centuries. In the fishing villages of Asia and Africa, these creatures are part of daily life, sometimes as food, sometimes as folklore, sometimes as living puzzles that children chase across tidal flats. In parts of Southeast Asia, mudskippers are considered a seasonal delicacy. Fishermen catch them by hand during low tide, scooping them from burrows or nets. Grilled, fried, or stewed, they are a source of protein in communities where every creature from the sea and shore is valued. Yet not all associations are culinary. In some coastal traditions, mudskippers are symbols of persistence. Their ability to thrive between water and land mirrors human resilience against changing tides, storms, and unpredictable harvests. Elders tell children, "Be like the mudskipper, never afraid to leave the water, never afraid to try." Folklore paints them in many lights. In certain Malaysian stories, mudskippers are tricksters, darting between worlds, mocking predators and fishermen alike. Their bulging eyes and comical leaps make them easy characters for storytelling, half comic relief, half clever survivor. In Japanese coastal regions, mudskippers appear in folk art and children's rhymes. Their name, Mutsugoro, is playful, and their image often used to teach kids about tidal cycles. To see one hopping across mudflats is to feel that nature itself is alive and mischievous. Science, too, has embraced them. Biologists study mudskippers as living models of evolution's great transition from water to land. The leap that ancient fish made 370 million years ago is mirrored in miniature every day when a mudskipper climbs a root or gulps air. Researchers marvel at their physiology, their amphibious lungs, their skin breathing, their burrow building. All are subjects of countless papers and experiments. To scientists, mudskippers are not oddities. They are windows into deep time, into the moment life dared to crawl onto shore. Artists also draw inspiration from them. Painters and photographers capture their bulging eyes and dramatic postures, using them as symbols of strangeness and adaptation. In modern pop culture, they sometimes appear in cartoons or nature documentaries as the fish that wanted to be something more. But human impact is double-edged. In some regions, mudskippers are threatened by habitat destruction. Coastal development, pollution, and mangrove loss reduce the tidal flats where they thrive. What was once a playground of thousands of mudskippers becomes a sterile wall of concrete. Conservationists argue that mudskippers should not be ignored. They may be small and strange, but they are vital indicators of wetland health. Where mudskippers hop, ecosystems thrive. Where they vanish, warning signs of ecological collapse soon follow. Children in villages often treat them as companions. Youngsters chase mudskippers across flats, laughing as the creatures leap away or dive into burrows. These memories form bonds. Mudskippers are not abstract species to them, but neighbors in the same landscape. In some fishing communities, mudskippers are even used as bait for larger catches. Their abundance and resilience make them practical tools, though this reduces their numbers. For those who depend on the sea, every creature becomes part of survival. Religious symbolism has occasionally touched them. In a few traditions, mudskippers are seen as boundary crossers, able to move between two worlds, water and land, just as spirits move between life and death. They become metaphors for passage, transformation, and resilience. Across cultures, one theme repeats: fascination. Whether as food, folklore, research subject, or symbol, mudskippers capture attention. Their strangeness makes them unforgettable. Their antics, rolling, leaping, staring, become stories passed from one generation to the next. Even in modern times, the internet has embraced them. Viral videos of mudskippers fighting or climbing trees attract millions of views, turning these humble creatures into global stars. Their oddness becomes entertainment. Their survival strategies become memes. This human connection, sometimes reverent, sometimes exploitative, shapes the future of mudskippers. They are not just creatures of mud and tide, but creatures of story. And as long as humans continue to notice them, their legend will grow alongside their reality. In the end, mudskippers are more than fish. They are bridges between water and land, between survival and curiosity, between science and story. And in that role, they remind us that even the strangest beings can inspire imagination. At first glance, mudskippers look like ordinary fish. They have fins, scales, gills, and the same fish-like outline we know from the sea. But hidden inside their bodies is a toolkit that lets them do what almost no other fish can: breathe air on land. The secret begins with their gills. For most fish, gills collapse the moment they leave water, drying out and losing their ability to extract oxygen. Mudskippers, however, reinforce their gill chambers with a specialized structure that prevents collapse. Their gills remain moist and partly functional even in open air. But gills alone aren't enough. Air contains far less dissolved oxygen than water, and breathing it requires different strategies. Mudskippers have evolved to use their skin as a breathing surface. Their moist, mucus-covered skin acts like a sponge, absorbing oxygen directly from the air. To keep the system working, they must stay wet. That's why mudskippers constantly roll in mud, splash themselves, or retreat to damp burrows. Each layer of moisture is a lifeline, keeping their skin capable of gas exchange. Without it, they suffocate. Even more remarkable is their ability to store air in their gill chambers. Like tiny scuba tanks, these sealed pouches trap bubbles of oxygenated air, which the mudskipper can sip slowly while on land. This technique buys them precious minutes of activity between water visits. Another adaptation lies in their mouth and throat. Mudskippers use a process called buccal pumping, drawing air into their mouths and pressing it against moist tissues for absorption. It's a primitive but effective version of lung breathing. Their blood vessels, too, are specialized. Dense capillary networks lie just beneath the skin, especially around the mouth and throat, maximizing the efficiency of oxygen uptake. To a biologist, their circulatory system looks like a hybrid between fish and amphibian. All of these features combine into an astonishing whole. A mudskipper can spend hours on land, hopping, climbing, and feeding before needing to return to water. It is neither fully fish nor fully amphibian. It is something in between, perfectly tuned for the tidal flats. This strategy isn't just about survival. It allows mudskippers to exploit a niche with little competition. On land, few predators chase them, and food sources such as insects and algae are abundant. Breathing air gives them access to an ecological buffet, yet the adaptation has limits. Mudskippers cannot stay dry for too long. If the tide retreats and heat bakes the mud, they risk dehydration and suffocation. That's why their burrows, filled with humidity, are essential backup habitats. Scientists study this dual breathing system with fascination. It offers a living glimpse into how early vertebrates may have first experimented with air. The leap from water to land was not a single step. It was a series of small innovations, much like those seen in mudskippers today. In fact, researchers describe mudskippers as living fossils of evolution. Their ability to switch between gill breathing, skin breathing, and stored air echoes the transitional experiments that life once tried 370 million years ago. For humans, these lessons matter. Understanding amphibious respiration could inspire medical advances, ways to protect organs during surgery, or even methods of artificial respiration in extreme environments. The mudskipper, in its humble way, carries secrets that medicine has yet to unlock. To observers, though, the details are invisible. What people see is a comical fish gasping, blinking, and leaping through mud. Yet, every movement hides a sophisticated system of survival, written in chemistry, anatomy, and instinct. On tidal flats, this adaptation defines the rhythm of life. When the tide falls, mudskippers rise from their burrows, their moist skin glistening, their eyes scanning. They breathe air, hunt, and mate, all on land. When the tide returns, they slip back into water, shifting seamlessly between worlds. This dual existence makes mudskippers more than curiosities. They are testaments to life's creativity. They prove that breathing is not limited to lungs or gills, but can be reinvented in countless ways. In the story of the mudskipper, breathing itself becomes an art. It is not just about survival, it is about freedom. With every gulp of air and every hop on mud, these creatures blur the line between two worlds, claiming both as their own. At sunrise, the tide begins to fall, peeling back the sea like a retreating curtain. Wet mudflats glisten under the first rays of light, and tiny holes appear where burrows breathe. From these holes, mudskippers emerge one by one, their eyes blinking above their heads like periscopes. The morning is for warming. The fish sprawl flat against the mud, soaking up sunlight to raise their body temperatures. Their skin glistens with mucus, protecting them from drying out as they bask. Around them, fiddler crabs scuttle, and the air fills with the calls of shorebirds. Soon, feeding begins. Mudskippers hop from patch to patch, jaws snapping at small insects, worms, and even algae films. Their hunting is clumsy but effective. Each lunge forward is followed by a quick pause, as if the fish is calculating its next move. Mid-morning brings social tension. Males patrol their territories, raising their dorsal fins like flags of defiance. If a rival comes too close, the two engage in a ritual duel, arched backs, flared fins, head bobs, and sudden leaps. Often, these battles end without violence, as one retreats into the mud. By midday, the sun grows fierce, and the mud hardens. To avoid overheating, many mudskippers retreat to their burrows. These cool, damp tunnels act like natural air-conditioned shelters. Inside, some rest quietly, while others guard hidden air chambers where oxygen is stored. When the heat eases, the mudskippers return. Afternoon becomes a stage for courtship. Males dig furiously, enlarging burrows to impress females. They leap high into the air, shimmering in the sun before crashing back into the mud. These acrobatics are both performance and promise, proof of strength, stamina, and territory. Females watch carefully, their eyes swiveling, judging every leap. If satisfied, a female may slip into a male's burrow, where mating takes place in hidden chambers. The burrow then becomes a nursery, carefully maintained to shelter developing eggs from tides and predators. As the tide begins to rise again, the mudskippers change their rhythm. Feeding intensifies, as if cramming in the last meal before water floods the flats. Some dart into burrows, sealing entrances with mud plugs to keep nests safe. Others linger at the edge, timing their retreat with the incoming water. By dusk, the sea reclaims the flats. The mudskippers vanish beneath the surface, hidden in burrows, or swimming briefly before settling into safety. The chorus of shorebirds fades, leaving only the sound of waves washing over what, hours earlier, was a bustling city of amphibious fish. For the mudskipper, this cycle repeats endlessly. Each day is shaped by the rhythm of the tides, the heat of the sun, and the delicate balance between land and sea. Survival depends on timing, when to feed, when to fight, when to hide, and when to leap. To an outsider, their life may look strange, even chaotic. But to the mudskipper, every hop, every roll in the mud, every duel and courtship leap is part of a carefully choreographed dance, written by evolution and performed on the stage of the tidal flats. In this daily drama, mudskippers are not just surviving, they are thriving, masters of a world that changes with every tide, creatures of habit and innovation, living proof that life can adapt to the strangest theaters. For all their adaptations, mudskippers are far from invincible. Life on the tidal flats is full of dangers, both from the air and from the water. Every day is a gamble between feeding, defending, and avoiding becoming someone else's meal. From above, birds pose the greatest threat. Herons, kingfishers, and shorebirds patrol the mudflats, their sharp eyes scanning for movement. A mudskipper, basking too long, risks a sudden strike from a beak, ending its strange story in an instant. Crabs, too, are relentless neighbors. Fiddler crabs and larger mud crabs may overpower small mudskippers, seizing them with crushing pincers. Territorial skirmishes on the flats are not always just displays. Sometimes they turn deadly. Snakes slither along the edges of mangroves and tidal pools, their tongues flicking for the scent of prey. A careless mudskipper venturing too close to water risks becoming a quick meal. These reptiles exploit the fish's constant movement between land and sea. Even fish from the water itself pose danger. Larger predatory species lurk in tidal channels, waiting for mudskippers to slip back into the shallows. Here, agility on land means nothing, and the amphibious pioneers are forced into retreat. Mammals add another layer of risk. Raccoons, monkeys, and even domestic cats in some regions hunt mudskippers for food or play. Their slow hopping gait makes them easy targets compared to quicker land animals. But not all threats are predators. The environment itself is merciless. The midday sun bakes the mud until it cracks, threatening to dry out the mudskipper's skin. Without rolling in mud or finding shade, dehydration comes quickly. Tides can also be both friend and foe. A sudden surge may flood burrows, drowning eggs or flushing juveniles into open water. Conversely, a retreating tide may leave mudskippers exposed too long, stranding them far from safe cover. Competition within their own species is another challenge. Territory battles, though often ritualistic, can escalate. Injuries from biting or slamming can weaken a mudskipper, making it vulnerable to predators or infection. Human activity has magnified these dangers. Coastal development erases mudflats, replacing them with concrete and ports. Pollution seeps into tidal zones, poisoning both mudskippers and the insects they feed on. In some regions, mudskippers are harvested directly for bait, food, or curiosity. Though not widespread, these pressures add to the already fragile balance of survival. Despite all these threats, mudskippers endure. Their vigilance is constant, eyes always swiveling, bodies ready to leap, burrows always nearby. It is a life lived on alert in a theater where safety is never guaranteed. Predators and threats shape every behavior. The mudskipper's camouflage, its burrows, even its strange air-breathing tricks all exist because of danger. Without risk, there would be no need for such bizarre survival skills. In this way, the mudskipper is both fragile and resilient, vulnerable to countless enemies, yet armed with instincts honed for millennia. Each survival is a victory, each tide another chance. Long before scientists studied mudskippers, people living along coasts and estuaries had already noticed them. Their antics, leaping, blinking, climbing roots, were too strange to ignore. Over time, they became part of folklore, metaphors, and even local identities. In Japan, mudskippers are called musugoro, and they hold a special place in coastal culture. They appear in children's songs and folktales, often as playful tricksters who dart between land and water, mocking larger animals that cannot follow. Festivals in some regions even celebrate them as symbols of resilience. In Southeast Asia, mudskippers are sometimes woven into stories about adaptability. Elders tell children, "Be like the fish that breathes air, never afraid to step where others cannot." Their boldness, living in two worlds, becomes a lesson in courage and persistence. In parts of West Africa, mudskippers are linked to tidal spirits. Their ability to vanish into burrows when danger comes, then reappear as if reborn, is seen as a metaphor for life, death, and return. Some communities view them as messengers between the water and the land. Folklore often exaggerates their abilities. Tales describe mudskippers climbing trees to spy on humans, or leaping so high they could touch the sky. Children laugh at these stories, but they also learn to respect the mudflats, where nature's strangeness thrives. Their appearance makes them natural characters in oral storytelling. With bulging eyes and clumsy hops, they are depicted as comic yet clever, creatures who survive not through strength, but through wit. This trickster archetype mirrors human struggles in unpredictable environments. Mudskippers also feature in art. Fishermen carve them into wooden charms representing good luck for tidal harvests. In paintings and crafts, they symbolize the meeting of two worlds, sea and land, survival and change. In some fishing communities, mudskippers are treated as living barometers. Their abundance on flats signals healthy wetlands, while their absence warns of decline. Folklore blends with ecology. People read the mudskipper's presence as a message from the environment itself. Even food traditions tie them to culture. In Japan's Saga Prefecture, grilled mutsugoro is a delicacy, honored not just for its taste, but for the endurance of the species in muddy, shifting habitats. Eating them is, in a way, eating resilience. Modern popular culture has also embraced mudskippers. Documentaries highlight their quirks, while viral videos showcase them fighting or leaping. Online, they are often dubbed the fish that wanted to be something more, a meme of ambition and strangeness. What makes them enduring symbols is their duality. They belong to no single world, straddling water and land with ease. To humans, this makes them perfect metaphors for change, for courage, for crossing boundaries others cannot. In every culture where mudskippers appear, they carry the same message. Life is not confined by limits. To leap where others cannot is not foolish. It is visionary. For millions of years, mudskippers thrived on tidal flats, adapting to rhythms of sun, moon, and tide. But in the modern age, their greatest threat is no longer predators or storms. It is people. Human activity reshapes coastlines faster than any natural force. The first danger comes from habitat loss. Mangroves and mudflats, the natural homes of mudskippers, are disappearing at alarming rates. Expanding cities, shrimp farms, and coastal development replace soft, breathing mud with walls of concrete. For creatures that depend on shallow burrows, this is erasure. Pollution adds another layer of threat. Industrial waste, plastic debris, and pesticide runoff seep into tidal zones. Mudskippers, which breathe through skin and live half buried in soil, absorb these toxins directly. What evolution prepared them for: predators, heat, hunger, it did not prepare them for chemicals. Climate change disrupts the delicate balance of tides and seasons. Rising sea levels drown mudflats, leaving fewer spaces to feed or breed. Stronger storms churn habitats into wastelands. Heat waves dry flats too quickly, forcing mudskippers to retreat before they can feed. Overharvesting, though less widespread, also plays a role. In some regions, mudskippers are caught for food, bait, or even novelty pets. While not yet catastrophic, localized overfishing can wipe out small populations, especially where habitats are already shrinking. The tragedy lies in invisibility. Unlike dolphins or turtles, mudskippers are not charismatic megafauna. They are small, strange, and often overlooked. Few people campaign for their protection, even though they are vital indicators of wetland health. Yet hope exists. Conservation groups working to restore mangroves indirectly protect mudskippers. Where wetlands are preserved, these amphibious fish return, their hopping presence a sign of recovery. Protecting tidal zones saves countless species at once. In some communities, awareness campaigns highlight mudskippers as guardians of the mud. Children learn their ecological importance, how their burrows oxygenate soil, how their presence signals balance. Education transforms oddity into ally. Science, too, adds urgency. Researchers warn that losing mudskippers means losing living models of evolution. Each vanished population erases insights into how life first conquered land. Protecting them is not just ecological, it is historical, even philosophical. The truth is simple: mudskippers cannot survive without mud. If wetlands fall, so will they. Their bizarre adaptations, perfected over eons, are powerless against bulldozers and rising seas. Survival now rests in human hands. Conservation is a choice. To save mudskippers, we must value the overlooked, the strange, the muddy. We must see beauty in creatures that hop instead of fly, that breathe through skin instead of lungs, that remind us evolution is not finished. In the end, the fate of mudskippers mirrors our own. As coastlines vanish, as climates shift, their struggle becomes ours. Protecting them means protecting the wetlands that shield our shores, store our carbon, and sustain our fisheries. If mudskippers endure, it will not be because of their instincts alone. It will be because humans finally learned to notice and to care. The mudskipper may look comical, even awkward: bulging eyes, flapping fins, clumsy hops across sticky flats. But hidden in its strange behavior is a story far larger than itself. It is a living reminder that survival is not about perfection, but about adaptation. The first lesson is courage. Most fish stay in water, where safety and oxygen are certain. The mudskipper dares to leave. Each leap onto land is a gamble, yet it opens doors to new food, fewer predators, and fresh possibilities. From this, we learn that stepping beyond comfort, even clumsily, can create strength. The second lesson is creativity. Breathing through skin, storing bubbles of air, rolling in mud to stay alive, these are not ordinary solutions. They show that life does not follow one rulebook. Where we see limits, nature invents alternatives. The mudskipper teaches us that survival often lies in unconventional choices. The third lesson is balance. Mudskippers cannot live fully in water, nor fully on land. They exist in between, masters of a boundary zone. Their life tells us that strength is not always about conquering one world, but about finding harmony between two. The fourth lesson is resilience. Every day they face predators, heat, tides, and shrinking habitats. Yet still they leap, dig, and defend their tiny territories. Their persistence reminds us that resilience is not the absence of hardship. It is the choice to continue despite it. The fifth lesson is humility. Humans dream of space travel, cryogenic sleep, and adaptation to extreme environments. Yet here, in the mud, a small fish has already achieved feats that science can barely imagine. It humbles us to realize that answers to our grandest ambitions may already exist in nature. The final lesson is wonder. Watching a mudskipper climb a mangrove root or blink its bulging eyes under the sun is to see the improbable made real. They blur lines between categories: fish and amphibian, water and land, survival and comedy. They remind us that the world is stranger, richer, and more surprising than fiction. In the end, the mudskipper's greatest gift is perspective. It shows that life does not march forward in straight lines. Evolution meanders, experiments, and sometimes creates creatures that defy logic. Those creatures, no matter how strange, carry wisdom about persistence, creativity, and survival. So the next time you stand on a tidal flat, where mud breathes and the tide waits to return, look closely. You may see a tiny figure hopping, blinking, daring the impossible. That is the mudskipper, teacher, survivor, boundary crosser. And in its strange, muddy dance, it whispers a truth for us all. Survival is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It is about being willing to adapt, to try, to leap into new worlds.